Where's the trust that you have within yourself? And if
Yeah.
it's there,
Yeah.
tap into that.
Yeah.
I trust
It's
it.
just like
So
going
hard.
back to the setting up my phone and turning my Wi-Fi off. Like, if my mom dies, my mom dies. We just have to take care of it after I put my Wi-Fi back on this
The biggest
phone.
thing that I value is my relationship with God
Yeah.
and my relationship with my spiritual self.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're really gonna lose some listeners here,
That's fine.
but it's very important to me to know that there is a person, a higher power, not a person, but a God, a being, someone that is helping me, guiding me, someone that I can trust, helps me trust. Never let me in that house because I will be with this microphone. He's gay.
Well, thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I never know if I should tell my guests that I'm nervous because I don't want them to feel like I don't want them to be nervous. So I feel like if I tell them that I'm nervous and they're like, "Oh, well, then I'm going to be nervous." It's like,
Yeah.
no, you
No,
shouldn't. I just want you
It's
to
your
know.
it's your like product
Yeah.
too. I'm nervous because I'm always nervous.
Yeah.
But when people tell me they're nervous, it helps me feel validated. Like, oh,
Oh, okay.
I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm less nervous now that we've called it out.
Now, yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like I need to call it out. Like,
Yeah.
yo, but then as a host, I'm like, you got to be strong. Like, you got to not let your guests feel like you're weak.
But then you can't also be vulnerable. It's hard to
Yeah.
be like strong
Yes.
and have an open conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I think being nervous is good. It means you care.
Oh, thanks. I always feel like I get to, I don't know, it's so funny because if you would have asked me like 2 months ago, I would have had a plan. And then, as you probably know, I like plans.
Yeah.
And then if they don't go the way I planned them, then I, spiraled, just nosedive to the ground. And yeah, I had a list of people and people, it's a learning experience, I feel like I have to learn that not everyone wants to do this.
Yeah.
And not everyone wants to share. Not everyone they want to be a part and they want to support. But I have to get used to like some people's support doesn't mean showing up and being a guest. Some people's support is just being there. And so as someone who, you're trying to build something, is like, yeah, I kind of need your support to be showing up like this. But once again, it's kind of like your planning. I don't know. I have to get over this planning. It's hard. I'm trying to talk to my therapist about it, but I don't know what. I think it's a safety thing. I think it's like a safety mechanism. I think trauma in my past. I think if I plan something that I know the outcome, I can't be surprised. I know what to expect. And I think that's where I freak out because then it's like, I don't know what to expect. And then I don't know how to prepare, and this is like, sometimes you have to, I think with this, which is every time I feel like, is this the right move for me? Like, am I doing something right? Like, am I having fun? It is something that I feel like, I'm glad that you're here. Cause sometimes as stupid as this sound, I kind of look at it as like my child.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a parent, you might think like, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but then you pop out these two kids and then it shows you that you can't do X, Y, and Z.
No control.
Yes. And I'm like, is this how parents feel? Like, is this how you guys feel?
I don't know. I get the non-control thing
Yeah.
and the planning thing. I'm starting to let go of that because I was just like I think you'll see with this project.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take on a life of its own that reflects who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it couldn't happen without you. And it doesn't have anything to do with your plans. Fuck your plans. It has everything to do with the fact that you're making it. It's part of your identity is coming into the project. Just like my kids. It's hard to not see them as a reflection of myself. But if I plan for it, I'm going to fail. If I have expectations, then I'm just waiting to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So basically, they're a reflection of like me, yes, but they're also their own people. Just like your podcast is a reflection of you. But it's kind of taking on a life of its own.
Yes.
So you might have to release that control.
Yes. And I love that you said it's taking on a life of its own. I'm like, hold on. I didn't give you permission to do this. And I don't know. Oh, I was watching Spider-Man Into the Universe and the Spider-Man guy kept like, he's a teen and obviously he has superpowers. So he wants to like explore the world. And his mom is like, they're trying to, I don't want to say control him, but they obviously don't know that he's a superhero. And so they're like, why aren't you applying for college? Like, why aren't you doing all this stuff? And in the movie, the mom was like, I don't know what's going on, but I've tried my hardest. And I'm just going to say, like, whatever you're trying to do, you have my full blessing. You have my love. And it's kind of like a moment for parents, well, not for parents, but for her to be like, I did the best that I can do. And I think I'm just holding on too tight. And you're trying to show me that you can stand on your own 2 feet. And I think as a mom, she had to be like, I don't know if I was ready for this moment, but I can't control this moment. And the best thing I can do is just hope for the best that I, raised you the right way.
Yeah.
And so when I look at, I guess when you're saying what you said before, it's just like, I can't control. I think another thing is like, I'm trying to control the outcome. Like I'm trying to control, like once I put it on TikTok, like what the fuck is going
Yeah. Yep. Yep. How people perceive it
Yes.
or how it, yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Things you can't control.
No.
Just like the spider, she can't control Spider-Man and
No.
whatever he's going to do. And that starts young. It's all about trust. So I trust my oldest son, who isn't even 7 yet, to use his resources and to solve his problems in the way that with the tools that he has, because I've seen him do it. That took years of me trusting that he knew how to navigate through the world in a real, and like it takes a great deal of trust. So I think because this project isn't a child, it's an actual thing you're creating. It's a part of you. What's your relationship with trusting yourself and trusting the decisions you're making and trusting the art you create, right? It's your first time really making a big,
Yeah.
I mean, that I know of, a huge art project and it's public, that's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Where's the trust that you have within yourself? And if it's there,
Yeah.
tap into that.
Yeah.
I trust myself.
Yeah. That's so that really helped because it also helps me realize like, okay, I'm glad because sometimes I'm like, oh, if I had like a permanent guest, it would be a lot more easier, right? But then it's just like, well, are you going to try to do the easiest route, right? And I think that's another thing is I started this because I felt like I lost trust in myself, but it's interesting to see that I it's like I'm trying to get all these puzzle pieces back, and it's just like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Every time I'm trying to teach something to someone, it's always just another reflection back. It's like I'm creating a project so people can believe in themselves,
Yeah.
but then I'm still struggling with that. And then you come and be like, you got to trust yourself. I'm like, oh, I guess it's easier said than done.
It is. I'm sitting here like, trust yourself.
Yes.
And I'd be like, bitch, I don't trust myself.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I can tap in. I can have that conversation. Like sometimes that conversation isn't even open.
Yeah.
I'm so assuming that I'm going to fail that I don't even let my sort of, light, the voice that I consider a light to like inform me that, oh no, like you've done this before. You're professional. You've got this. But I think having that conversation, do I trust myself? What's the evidence? What's the feedback I've gotten? Sometimes that helps too. But I guess I'm confused as to where the planning is falling through for you. Is it guests saying that they don't want to do it anymore, backing out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I think in the very beginning, like, it's also, I will just talk.
Okay.
Because I have another guest planned and she has a podcast too, but I was going to be like, girl, let me tell you everything that I'm having a problem with and let's dive into it. But once again, that's planning. So, let go of the plan. But yeah, I also am trying to unlearn almost every social construct that has been made known to me, which is extremely hard because if you think like me, almost everything that we stand on is technically a social construct.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, if I unravel all of that, then where do I stand? And the one that I'm focusing on now is the concept of time. And I think that's another thing that I always like stress over is time. Like I remember I was watching Kevin Hart has a show. I can't remember what it's called. It was on Peacock and he had Jay-Z. And Jay-Z said the only thing you can control is how you spend your time. And that really like hit me right in the feels. I'm like, oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, right, like when I first started off, I wanted to do seasons. Like I wanted to do season 1 and then I wanted to do season 2, right? And I planned on having a certain amount of guests. I think also what is making me nervous is this, when you look at all these social media people, they always talk about you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
But what does consistent mean? Like, do I just have to keep being consistent on TikTok? Like, if I can't deliver a podcast all the time, is that not being consistent? And then am I falling in the trap? Because also, like, when you look at big podcasts that drop every week,
Yeah.
some of them you can feel that the machine has taken over.
Yeah. Forced.
It's
Yeah.
force. It's like, now we got to keep up with the ads. Now we just got to keep up with the Joneses. You know, it doesn't. Let's keep up with the guests. Some of them like recycle guests
I was
all the
gonna say
time,
recycle guests and
all
content
and
just to
content,
be consistent.
just to be
I
consistent.
think you have to measure consistency with
Yeah.
authenticity. So if like one week you're set up your situation and you sit here and just kind of say like, I don't want to do this. I have no inspiration. I think if you start that conversation,
Yeah.
you'll go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's something you'll never release, I think the consistency might not be in, maybe some people take it literally and they're like, put it out,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it's just consistently make.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
mean publicize everything,
Yeah.
but consistently continue to create.
Yeah.
Because I think one day if you would set this mic up and you sat here and talked about how uninspired you felt that day,
Mm-hmm.
that would unravel a huge conversation.
Mm-hmm.
People would, that would resonate. That resonates with me all the time. Like I'm painting at home right now. I have a painting I started a month ago and it's just sitting there and it's looking at me every day. And I know that I have to have this like feeling in my spirit to
Mm-hmm.
go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so consistency just means like picking up and trying, maybe painting an eyeball today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, being consistent. I don't know. I don't do social media.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it means
Mm-hmm.
to be
Yeah.
consistent.
I mean, I do, but I don't do it like people do it. So I also don't know what it means to be consistent. But also going back to the time thing, it's just like, okay, well, I plan to release all of these episodes that I'm creating now in January.
Yeah.
But a part of me is trying to figure out, it's not like that I'm impatient, but when not all my guests, but when my guests for season 2 started to kind of be wonky, right? And I was only looking at 3 people. I was like, so then what's the whole point of waiting for next year if I only have 3 episodes? I might as well just release them now, right? And then all of a sudden you were like, hey, I'll come back. And then my friend was like, let's make a bonfire. I have a friend that I think you should meet. And then someone else like reached out. So then more people were coming out of the woodwork, which was like crazy because that was like, I literally planned all that this month. Like in June, I was looking at 3 people. Now I'm looking at 6 people. And it's
Oh my
like, holy
gosh.
crap. But then it's like, okay, so do I wait till January or do I go back to the original plan of like, let's just release them? Like, what's the whole point of waiting till January? Why not release it? Like, you have all these ideas. Why don't you just create them, cut, print, and put
Yeah.
them out there? Like, why are you waiting for like this time period? And that's another thing too. It's just like half of me, when I did season 1, I learned that I'm so bored, still unmotivated. And that's another reason, like, well, why don't we just kind of step on the gas a little bit harder then? Like, we have the time. We're very interested. We want to see what people say. So why not just go for it? Why wait? Why set a destination out like January when you can easily put them out in September and just see what happens?
I think, yeah, I do wonder where that, I was going to ask, where did that arbitrary month come? Like, why were you like, it has to be January 1st?
Because I wanted, because in the very beginning, I knew that I couldn't keep up with having a podcast every week.
Okay.
And I thought if I was consistent with doing this once every other week, and then I can do like, hey, in this year, I have 8 new guests, 16 new episodes. We're going to stick with the formula.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I did it. But, you know, you plan for that and then you create things and then it's like, we can't fit in that mold anymore. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know what to do if you can't fit in my mold anymore.
Yes.
Like, what do we do?
Maybe you're yeah. And that's what I'm wondering. Are you inflexible to that change, to this thing changing and not being a season thing, just an ongoing thing because you
Yes.
have, you know, and I think you can look at strategies of like people that are putting out content.
Mhm.
Like, what's the strategy of putting out annual content or
Mhm.
waiting?
Mhm.
Or is there a strategy if you want to be technical? But if you just want this to be sort of a labor of love or something that comes from your heart, put it out the way that you want people to receive it. Do it in the most genuine way. If you're like, why am I waiting? Then push it out.
Yeah.
You can always do more. I
Yeah.
was thinking, I've been talking to so many people about your podcast, and I was like, Dan, you have to just come one of these days and just watch us or like be a part of it because he's got a lot to say. And like, there's so many people that want to be a part of what you're doing, but the people that like, it'll be natural. So people that are backing out, it's meant to be. They're not supposed to be here. This isn't their time to be vulnerable
Yeah.
or to want to share. it's the people will come that are
Yeah.
ready to come. And what do you want this project to be? Do you want
Yeah.
it to be, what are you hoping to get out of it?
Yeah. So rhetorical question.
Yeah, and I know, I was like, I don't think he's gonna answer that. So once you figure that out, or you might never figure that out, but it's something to consider.
Yeah.
Journal about it, maybe. I don't know, but what am I hoping to get out? What do I want people to hear? Because I like tuning in. I enjoy tuning in and hearing each week because I have a personal relationship
Yeah.
with you. So it's hard for me to be objective and
Mhm.
just be like, well, I really like this about it.
Mhm.
Because I just know you and the people you're
Mhm.
interviewing. I want to know more about you
Mhm.
and them as well. So I think, yeah, I don't know. The people that love you don't always, I said this the first time, don't always get the most out of you
Yeah.
sometimes emotionally or even just where you are in your life. So it kind of helps me as a
Mhm.
listener figure out where you are.
Mhm. Mhm. And I understand because I'm one of those friends that are like, please, let's just like talk about something other than what I have to do. But I'm glad that this is, and I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that it's becoming a place, or I don't even know, where my friends who I've seen for 10 years and had since college, had since high school, are still learning more about me. Because it's, if you're learning more about me, then that means when strangers listen, then they're going to learn about me, which is kind of like the whole point of all this. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, that's good. So it's a tool that you use to communicate
Yes, it
to
is.
others.
It is. Is
And
it too, like, I'm desperately wishing my parents will listen to it because it's like kind of the only way. It's like, when you have a diary, you're like, Mom, don't look at my diary. I'm like, actually, here, look at my diary.
read the
Yeah.
diary.
Read chapter 4, paragraph 9.
This is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I kind of get that. That's why I asked you, what is your overall intention?
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're communicating something.
Yeah.
It feels like there's something there. I don't think you have anything, excuse me, to financially gain. You have a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Your needs are met. You're
Mm-hmm.
thriving.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of a emotional labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It
So I
really
can
is.
see that.
It really is. But okay. So I'm glad you're here.
Trying.
So thank you. Oh no, please cough.
Okay.
So, but thank you for coming back. I also don't know how I'm going to start this. So I also like not having an intro. Like I like being like, hey everyone, welcome back to Kurious. This is my
Yeah.
guest. It's just like,
Your intros and outros are very well done.
oh, thank you. I think they're the worst things part of them.
Really?
Oh, I think the outro's fine. I think the intros are garbage.
What do you want them to
More personal, more fun, more engaging, more like, I want it to be like more of like, you know what? I don't even know what I want. I watch podcasts and they start immediately. Like, hey, my name's Cayman. Welcome back to the Curious. This is my guest, Abby. Boom.
I like a little lube.
And some
before
people,
listening.
exactly. And some people like a little, foreplay. They need to know, like, they need to hear the jingle. I like that too.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Just like, I also get too much into my head about like, what can I do? And I found that it's easier for me. I've always been like this. I've always been a hands-on learner. And I find it easier if I just do something first
Yeah.
and then be like, did that satisfy my needs? It did it. Okay, let's continue doing something until I find what satisfies my needs instead of just sitting there and looking at all the possibilities and just getting overwhelmed.
But you'll learn in vivo while you're
Yeah.
living how
Yes.
you're doing it,
Yeah.
what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty, and that's why it sounds natural.
Yes.
And it's not like, hello,
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I told you before we started that, I had the day to myself, we will say. And right now, I think we talked about this a little bit last time we were at your house, but I wanted to bring it up with you because you're obviously a great person to talk to. My family is on a family reunion. They're at a family reunion right now, and I don't go. I haven't been in like, the last time I've been down to Springfield, Illinois was senior year of college. And that was because my grandfather passed. So that was like the last time.
Okay.
And I have not gone. And so yesterday I was sitting on my balcony and outside is an apartment and it seemed like a family reunion was going outside. It feels like Black people always have family reunions in like early July. So my mom called me and she does this every time she's at the family reunion. And she calls me and she's like, oh, Aunt Abby's asking where you are. Like,
We miss you.
they miss you every time. So everyone's here, all the family's here. And then she's like, oh, Aunt Abby, she asked me like, what kind of sports you watch, like what you do, all that stuff. And for me, I'm the type of person, if like you constantly say those types of things, it makes me draw back more. Like,
Mhm.
the more my mom's like, "So and so misses you," it was like, "Okay, well, this is
Yeah.
I'm adding 2 extra years. I'm not gonna go to the next 2
Yeah.
ones."
No, I feel that.
And I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it? Like, why do I not wanna go? And I just can't really figure it out. Some of the reasons is I don't know, I just don't care to go.
Yeah.
I just
You
don't
don't
care to
care to
go.
go? Do you get invited each year?
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets invited, like, my
Okay.
parents go all the time,
It's not
so
like we're not inviting him because he doesn't
Oh,
come.
no, no, no.
Yeah, I actually just had this almost exact situation with my family, but I was out of town. It was my grandma's birthday. It was supposed to be your big birthday, 87, I wanna say.
Mhm,
Um, and everyone was gonna go, and I got a call right after saying, "Yeah, you and another of one of my cousins out of, like, 20 of us
mhm,
were the only 2 to come."
mhm,
And there's a little bit of guilt in there, which triggers me to be defensive
mhm,
immediately. I know what you
mhm,
mean when your mom's like, "Yep, you weren't here," or "We
mhm.
miss you." It makes me feel like, "Oh, gosh, I'm never going." Like, I don't
Yes.
wanna deal with this guilt. I don't wanna claim it. I don't wanna but at the same time, there's something there that's triggering me to be defensive
Yeah,
about not being there. And I think for me, it's a rejection because I don't wanna be hurt, because I
yeah,
have, like, family issues. So,
yeah.
like, I don't want them to not accept me, so if I reject them
Mhm,
first, and
mhm,
if they tell me they miss me, well, fuck that. I'm gonna push
mhm.
back even harder so I'm rejecting you,
Yes.
and that's where it comes from for me. I'm not
Yeah.
calling you
No, no,
out.
no.
I know, like, after a lot of therapy, that's where my defensiveness
Yeah,
comes, and it's all about not feeling loved or welcomed already, and then being that person on the outside.
yeah.
I don't know.
I feel I wanna f I I feel that. I feel that could be a possibility,
Mhm.
but if I'm being 100% honest, that family has never really honestly given me a reason to push them away. So then it's just like, so then what is it? And
Mm.
I can tell myself, like, I do not wanna be in a car ride with my mom or my dad for 6 hours to 7
The
hours.
logistics of it.
Right, and then they were and we used to do every other year. So every other year will be either in Springfield/Chicago
Mhm,
or Minnesota.
mhm.
But because of 2020 and because of the the generation before us is getting a lot older,
Yeah,
they're not as mobile. So now everyone goes to them.
okay.
Because everyone, like my dad, he's obviously he can move around, but it's his uncles, his aunts, you know, that can't really get out, like the matriarch, like the heart of the family,
Yeah,
the roots of the family,
yep.
those people who are like now dying can't leave.
Mm.
And so we're like, okay, well, since we're all young and mobile, we can come to you. And it is a petty reason to not go because you don't want to be in a car ride that long. Like, I understand how that
Yeah.
sounds. And that's why I'm trying to figure out, like, what else could it be?
What is it?
But, even if I put my friends like Malik lives 4 hours away or Taylor lives 4 hours away, and I still don't get the,
Get up and
gall to
go
go,
to see
yeah.
them.
I have a friend whose wedding is in, like, I think 2 hours away, and that's still like, I don't maybe it's just road trips for me, but I just 1, I would love to figure out what it is, so it's definitely on a list the next time I talk to my therapist, like, what is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah.
And another thing is, like, I wanna ask my parents, like, how does it feel for you? Like, as probably the only couple that doesn't have their kid there.
Yeah.
Like, if I look at all the family that's in Minnesota, all the parents that are in Minnesota, their kids went, and then their grandkids went, because
Mhm.
now my generation is starting to have kids. So
Okay.
now you have my parents who go, the only one without a kid, the only one without a grandchild, and people keep asking, where's your son? And so I wonder as a parent, like, does that make you feel bad? Do you feel like I wish my son was here to enjoy all this family gathering? And I know my parents are proud of me. Like every time I tell them about my job and like going to the Beyonce concert, they're always like super proud that I'm traveling and making a great, life
Living
for
your life.
myself.
Yeah.
I think they want to be like, hey, family, look at my son who's doing great accomplishments.
Yeah.
But that goes totally against who I am as a
Yeah,
person. So
it's not a dog and pony show
exactly.
where you're like, "I'm here." And
Exactly.
I get that. I think if it were me as a parent, I would feel sad, yeah. They
Yeah.
definitely are so proud of you and probably want to, like, show you off to the world.
Hmm.
And also, I would have there'd be a conversation around it. Like, I wouldn't let it go 5 years of you not showing up, or how long after high school? It's been way more than 5. I don't know why it
Mhm.
feels like 5, but 10 years of not showing up there would be a conversation 8 years ago saying,
Mhm.
"I noticed you don't like going to these
Mhm.
things. What can we do? Like, why do your parents like going to those things?
Mhm.
Are they close with their
Mhm.
relatives? Maybe
Mhm.
they're not. Maybe they
Mhm.
are. Maybe it feels a little performative."
Mhm.
But like having a conversation about, "Hey, I love you." It's not a reflection of my love
Yeah.
towards you. It's a reflection of my disdain for whatever is like
Yeah.
really pushing you away. It sounds like it more just be the performance of, this is my family and
Yes.
this is who we are, and then
Yeah.
maybe you have to be someone you're
Yeah.
not.
And I also think it's too, like, it is the performance, you're right, and I don't know if performance is the right word,
Yeah.
but that generation is like, the fact that my mom called me up and like, "Your uncle wants to know what kind of sports that you watch." And I don't know
Yeah, that's
why
a
that,
funny
like
question that,
exactly, why I
like,
was just like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in 10 years, and you wanna know what sports I watch?" 1, I don't watch anything. My friend was like, "You should tell them that you watch RuPaul's Drag Race," and I thought that was so funny
that's
because that's, like,
cute.
exactly the sport that I watch is
Yes.
RuPaul's Drag Race. But I know if I say that, it would take them off. They're not that's not they're not programmed to receive those types of answers.
Mm,
You know, the reason why they ask what type of sport I watch, because that's a conversation that they know how to grab onto. You
yeah.
know, it's just like, once again, if I said I don't watch any sports, I bet the next question is like, are you dating? Like, who are you dating? Are you out? Are you, you know? And it's just like, for me, as I create this podcast, I like having conversations that, like, I don't, why are you asking about who I'm dating?
Mhm.
You know, why are you asking me what sports I play? Like, I haven't seen you in 10 years. Like, I'm more than the sports I play or the sports I watch. I'm more than who I'm dating.
Yeah.
And then do you want me to tell you that I'm not dating girls? Like, that's another thing. Like, the more time I spend away from them, the more when I do come back, I have to give. Like, I have to, like, I've been away for 10 years. So this is what I've been doing for 10 years. And that's another, once again, it's just like, I don't want to have, I guess I just don't want to have the responsibility or take accountability of being like, I've been gone for a long time. And now when I show up, you guys are going to be circling around me and being like, we miss you. We love you. What's been going on for the past 10
Yeah.
years? And I don't want to sit here and be like a scroll of my life. You know what I mean? I kind of want to just pick up where I left off and just like keep going.
Okay. Okay.
But
So it sounds like it might be out of avoidance why you're not going
yeah,
then, because you don't want to deal with that. There's an elephant in the room that you haven't been there.
yeah,
So if you show up,
yeah,
the attention's going to be on you and
yes,
you don't want any of that.
yes, yeah,
But I think that if you can, maybe I had a question, but I forgot. Oh yeah. Do you, so it sounds like you anticipate a lot of
I
what they're
do.
going to say
Yes, yeah.
without even knowing,
Mm-hmm.
but you think you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so
That's what
but
the biggest thing my therapist is trying to
yeah.
teach me is like, you keep counting your eggs before they hatch.
Yeah.
And my mom has told me that since I was like 5.
Yeah.
So
You're like a, what's that called? The slippery slope guy in philosophy class. There's like always a fallacy, a
yeah.
logical fallacy, and you're the slippery slope. If that happens, then that's gonna happen.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I'm gonna die.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Like, when before we started and we were setting this up, and I was just like trying to tell you how when I have to turn my phone off,
yeah.
and I'm sitting there like, well,
You're
what
like,
if my mom
yeah,
dies?
that's
Like,
right.
if I turn my phone off
You
because I'm using my phone,
catastrophize.
yes.
You
Mm-hmm.
catastrophize.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they do if you're gay? Is everyone
Mm-hmm.
gonna stand around you and call
Yes.
you, you know,
Yes.
just horrible things, or are people gonna surprise you?
Yes. Mm.
And that'll be weird because maybe that intimacy will push you away. I'm sure it
Yes.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that your family asks about you
Mm-hmm.
and wants you to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, maybe it would be helpful for you to like pick 2 or 3 people out of that group who you actually care to
Mm-hmm.
build a relationship with and give them a call one day.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, "Hey, I thought about you. What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
maybe even put it on them, build that bridge so when you see them, they're already I don't know, well, at least my family, they gossip. If I tell my grandma what I've been up to, everybody knows, and I don't have to say anything. So maybe you could pick 2 or 3 people to just kinda catch up with when you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Half of the people already know,
Mm-hmm.
so you can cut that out, and
Mm-hmm.
you've done it over phone or
Yeah.
texting or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but I'm sure there's a way to not show up and have everything on
Yeah.
you, because that's like how I felt at my wedding, and I wanted to run for the hills.
Yeah.
It is not great to be a focal point of any
Mm-mm.
situation. So I think that maybe it's not time. Maybe it'll be another 10 years. I don't know, but I would definitely have that conversation with your parents. Like, Are you hurt by me not going?
Yeah.
It's not a reflection of my love towards you. I hope you know that.
Yeah. I do. I wanna have that conversation. That's what I was, because my cousin had a Snapchat, and he was Snapchatting, they all went bowling, and I saw my dad there and all the kids there, and I was just like, "I wonder if he's looking around and being like, 'Oh, I just wish my son was here.'" You know what I mean? It does suck, but I don't know. It's also like I'm turning 30, which is such a weird thing to say, that you're turning 30, because somehow I still feel like I'm the 12-year-old living in my parents' house, and
Yeah.
like everything I do is still a reflection of my parents, and every move I have to make is still like what do my parents feel like. So I hate when I'm trying to make a decision that I feel like is best for me, but
Mm.
yet is possibly hurting my parents. And it's just like, as someone who's trying to be a reformed people pleaser, like, where do I draw that line between this is my boundary and I'm sorry that it hurts you, but also taking a look at it like, is this a healthy boundary you're setting, or you're trying to like keep people away?
Yeah.
So
And I don't think it goes back to trusting yourself, what we
yeah.
talked about. Do you trust your own intentions? Do you think you're a bad person who wants to hurt their parents? Or do you, like, are you that person? Some people are. I remember feeling like mad at my parents as a
Yes.
young, I have angst in me, but also like now I'm old enough, I have the tools to reflect. Am I doing this out of a bad intention? Or am I doing this because I don't want to be the center of attention, but I do love my parents. So how can I not act out of guilt, but act out of like love for them?
Mhm.
And maybe I could send a card next year
Mhm.
for whoever
Mhm.
asked about me
Mhm.
with a letter in it. I
Mhm.
don't know, but I think there's a middle ground. I don't think
Mhm.
you have to throw everything out, and I don't think you have to show up and please everybody
Mhm.
either. I think there's a
Yeah.
way to do it that'll feel genuine to you,
Yeah.
and it'll be awkward and weird, but I think you'll feel you probably, I can imagine you would feel stress
Yeah.
to, that's it's like an assignment that's due.
Yes.
Like, fuck, I'm gonna have to go here
Yes.
someday.
Yes.
And these
Yeah.
are all the things that I'm gonna need to catch up on.
Yes.
So I think you can release yourself from that homework because you're not doing anything out of malice. Like,
Yeah.
you're not doing anything horrible. You're
Yeah.
just, you gotta draw boundaries in family.
I know. And yeah, and I remember when they were here a couple years ago, it was Minnesota, and I'm like, "Oh, this is so great." It just felt good. Like I like I said, none of my extended family has ever done anything where I should be like, "F you guys," right? Like none of them has done that. And all of my memories as a kid had in family reunions were all so good and so fun. And even like when I went the last time I was down there for my grandfather's funeral, like we played spades in his house, and like everyone was high and everyone was drunk and everyone was being loud, and like it was so much fun. And
Yeah.
I have two cousins down there that I laugh my spleen will fall off,
Yeah.
and they have kids that I have never even met,
Mm.
and then my aunt, one of my favorite aunts, has a son. I don't even know what age he is. Like if he walked through this room, I probably would not recognize him. And so it kind of sucks, even the people that I love, like not saying I don't love the rest of them, but like
Right.
the ones that you really get along with, the ones that you have so much fun with growing up, and then it's like, why it's like it's more of like, why can't I show up for them?
Yeah.
You like, instead of like showing up for everybody else, why can't I show up for those ones that are you're more comfortable with?
Oh, that's so funny. I'm having the same issue. So I
Mhm.
used to go to family things to see my cousin. I have two cousins that I'm close with.
Mhm.
And I have an aunt on my mom's side. On my dad's side, it's always kind of weird, but on my mom's side, there's hundreds of us,
Mhm.
and they're not all close to me. But I go for these single people,
Yeah.
and I stopped going for them. And my mom even said, your cousin so and so asked about you, and she's wondering if you're mad at her. And she said, I told her, girl, she's busy. She's got two kids, a full-time job, and she's in grad school. But that's such an excuse because I
Mhm.
make time to do so much other
Mhm.
stuff. And
Mhm.
so I called her, and before I even had any feeling about it, I called that cousin immediately and was
Mhm.
like, I love you. I
Mhm.
hope you're okay. She just had a
Mhm.
baby. I've only met that baby once. I should have
Yeah.
been around. And I'm sorry. Like, I am not perfect, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Um, and that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
That felt like shit.
Yeah.
That felt like, I had to take ownership of that. I should have
Yeah.
been there. So that might come up, but it didn't. Once I called her and got off the phone, I felt better because it wasn't, it, I just think people need to hear that you think about them.
Mhm.
and telling
Yeah.
them is really hard
Yeah.
because it makes you
Yeah.
vulnerable. And
Yeah.
part of me thinks that maybe you're not going is because the last time you went, you were straight.
Yeah. I mean, that's
That
honestly could be
maybe,
a
I feel
full
like that's a
ass. I
factor.
feel like that is I mean, like if we're keeping it 100, that could be a huge
You said it
reason
was
why.
high school, so you were
Yeah.
still straight up
Yeah.
until like mid freshman
Yeah.
year of,
College.
letting people
Yeah.
out. And maybe your parents don't know how to have that conversation,
Hmm.
or do you wish that they would sort of advocate for you within the family, or do you want to do that yourself?
I wish that we didn't live in a society where gay people had to come out.
Right.
Like, like if
This
I
is a conversation about
yeah.
my preferences.
That's really truly
Yeah.
what I would love. Because honestly, I feel like I said this before on the pod, like I've never sat down with my parents and been like, I'm gay.
Mm,
Like never. And there could be a huge reason why, but we won't, let's just say trauma, let's
right.
chalk it up to trauma. Right, and I did one time I came out to my sister, well, the only time I came out to my sister, we were in the middle of a restaurant, and she's religious, and, like, I mean, religious to the point where, Harry Potter was, like, a no-no,
Mm,
right? And mind you, this is my sister, not my parents.
yeah.
And I also had a conversation with my mom about religion too, and it was interesting because my dad, in the very beginning, he was never a church person. I remember a specific moment that turned my dad into a church person. I don't know what it is, but for a very long time, it was just me and my mom. We got up, went to 11 a.m. She had her little like mom bag that had like crayons and
Snacks.
and color things, the snacks and mints. And then I remember having fun. And not saying when my dad came, the fun left, but when my dad came, we started going to like 8 o'clock service, then Sunday school, and then he cooked every fourth Sunday. So then we had to go, like, we'll spend all day
Okay.
at church. And I'm
Yeah.
like, now, and then if I don't go, then I get grounded. And so lost my point of what I was saying, of why I brought that up.
Because why you've never had a conversation with your
Right.
parents.
Oh, and my sister. So that's
Yeah.
like the religious
So
household
they're
that we're in. And
got
so
it.
like my sister being religious is funny because she's more religious than my parents. So then I come out to her. We're in the middle of a restaurant. She cries. We're bawling. I remember the waiter was trying to come over and order for us, and he would come over and be like,
Read the room now.
and he read the room, and then he just left.
Like,
And then she just hijacked it all. And you
yeah.
probably don't know because you never came out, but like when you
Made it
tell
about
someone
her.
something
Yeah.
and it's so important to you, and then they like try to one up you with their stories, and you're just sitting there like, so, and I've also said this on the podcast before that my parents caught me watching gay porn like 3 times. And my dad, I remember one time I had a girl over at my house, and it wasn't even like that. It was, we went to a school that was outside of our district. So I had to walk at least 20 minutes to get to like the last bus stop that it would pick up.
Okay.
And she had to walk an extra 15 minutes. So like whenever we got dropped off, we'll walk to my house, and then she'll continue walking wherever she need to go.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Can I use the bathroom?" And my mom is very anal about having people in the house without her there. And it was like, obviously, I'm not gonna like. It's the bathroom, like she has to pee.
Yeah.
So I let her use my bathroom. That is the day that my dad decided to come home early. He comes home early, and my dad was not angry at all. I think first of all, he probably had a speculation that I was gay because when the girl left, he was like, son, I just want to ask you a question. I was like, sure, dad. And he was like, are you different? And I knew exactly what he meant. And I was just like, what do you mean? And he was like, I just, like, are you different? And I was like, he's like, are you different than your friends? And I was like, well, I'm black because I had like primarily white friends.
Yeah.
And he was just like, okay, never mind. But I knew what he was going to ask.
Mm,
And even the last time I was at my parents' house, we were talking, and I always do this thing. And I was like, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? And they're like, no. And then they would be like, is there anything you want to talk
Oh my
about?
Never let me in that house because I will be with this microphone. He's gay. Let's talk about We're not going to talk about it. Let's move on.
That's what I want. That's what I want. I want to like I just going back to like I just wish gay people don't have to come out anymore. I just really wish
Yeah.
that. I just wish we didn't have to do
No,
that.
that's
So
fair.
then we can just like and that goes back like I have so much that I can talk to you about, you know. I'm sorry I don't like sports, but when I hang out with my straight friends, like one of my good friends, Matt, one of the things he first told me about, he's like, I love hanging out with you because I don't have to talk about sports.
Yeah, you can
And I'm
talk about
like,
anything.
yes,
That's such a one-dimensional. Maybe that's the only segue he had into who
yes,
you are. I
yeah,
don't like sports, but I do
yeah,
like, whatever you're into.
yes.
Talk to them about your
I
podcast.
should, yeah.
That's something
I
to
I
deflect.
I wanna do I love comedians, and I think they're obviously funny because 'cause they're comedians. I love comedians, they're
They're
so
really
funny.
funny, guys.
But I just when I remember when my mom said that my uncle asked me what kind of sports I watch, and my friend immediately said Drag Race. It's just so funny because it's so jarring and it's
Yeah.
so left, and it's just like, maybe I should do that. Maybe they were like, "Who are you dating?" Or like, "What?" I'm like, I can't find a guy anywhere." And
Yeah.
maybe that honesty and that just straight upness is what's so funny to me.
Yeah.
And seeing them being caught off guard, I think that's what comedians do is they say things that are funny and off centered to see your reaction.
Yeah.
But it takes balls to sit there in front of your like old black relatives who
Right.
grew up in like, people used to call them the N word, just for, whatever. And they go grow up in the church to be like, yeah, I watched Drag Race. And then sit there and see their
See what they
reaction.
say.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say maybe, and again, this is a privileged
Yeah.
perspective, saying maybe you could just own that and fuck what they think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my grandma all the time. I say, Grandma, anyone's opinion of me is none of my business.
Hmm.
I don't even want to know. I don't need to know. It's none of my business.
Hmm.
But how can you say it to them in a way it cuts it right out of the air?
Yeah.
It might have some finesse. I think it's shitty that it's your responsibility to do
Hmm.
that. I think it's shitty that you have to come out. I think all those things are shitty.
Hmm.
But unless you want to not go
Hmm.
or you want to
Hmm.
pretend, you
Hmm.
only have a few options
Yep.
here. I guess that's what I'm looking
Yes.
at is
Yeah.
realistically, what are your options?
Yeah.
Never go. Go and
Yeah.
be a performative. Oh yeah, I've been dating,
Yeah.
Catherine or some shit. Like
Yeah.
really fucking do that. That would be
Yes.
funny too, a little bit,
Yes.
but not really. Or be authentic to who you are
Mhm.
and get the backlash.
Mhm.
Or not.
Mhm.
Maybe they know.
Mhm.
Maybe there's things they know that you don't, maybe they
Mhm.
won't, maybe they're prepared to be accepting,
Mhm.
which is also,
Mhm.
frustrating
Yeah.
because I've had that too. Whatever it is, you have your options. Which one will you feel better
I
about?
think at the end of the day, both of those options don't come with an easy path.
No,
So it's just like
so
going
hard.
back to the setting up my phone and turning my Wi-Fi off. Like if my mom dies, my mom dies. We just have to take care of it after I put my Wi-Fi back on this phone. So it's just like,
Yeah.
listen, if I disappoint them, I disappoint them. I think like we're whatever option I pick is not going to be gumdrops and cherries.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it will solve a problem. It will solve. People will finally get to see me,
Yeah.
and I can finally, I guess, get rid of this anxiety that I've been having of showing up and being like, if I'm being also another thing too, which I guess if I'm being 100% honest, I am that cousin that doesn't show up anymore.
Mhm.
But there's this like stigma of being the gay cousin where you're like the fabulous one, and I just don't
Mhm.
feel fabulous. So I want to be fabulous when I show up and be like, hey guys. But then knowing that that is another
That's
trying to show up and
perspective.
be perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
So each way I'm
it's like
trying to
you're
not be vulnerable. That's basically what it
how
is.
do I put up a shield but
Yes.
also be authentic?
Yes.
Oh, you can't?
Yes.
I'm gonna bleed a little bit from this? Okay, well, I'm either gonna avoid it or do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the
Mhm.
answers are inside of you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think I would love to see you go, but I understand why I'm a hypocrite to say that because I'm also not showing up in that way
Mhm.
because I've had those tough conversations, not of coming out, obviously, but being vulnerable about racism and
Mhm.
things that I believe in.
Mhm.
And they haven't all nailed. I've had to
Mhm.
leave some kitchens and
Mhm.
I wasn't welcome in some places. And
Mhm.
so that's also a possibility.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because I have a circle around me. I have a firm foundation,
Yeah.
right? Once you have that firm foundation, like your parents, maybe check in with them and be like, hey, I'm thinking of coming. Would you ever tell them you're nervous about something? Would you ever
We literally just talked for 45 minutes how I hate being vulnerable. I'm never
but
going to
would
be
you ever
like,
say, like, I'm nervous to take my driver's test or, like, anything like that? That never
no,
comes
I
up?
don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, there might be some there's a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But you
In,
could just rip the Band-Aid
yeah,
off or do that work. But I think you hold all the answers.
I know. Like we said, I just don't want to bleed, but that's not the option.
That's not the option, and it's okay. It's okay to bleed, or maybe you don't need them in your life. Like, who is your family outside of that? Do
And
you
that's
feel the
another thing too, is just like, I don't know if it's going back to one of those social constructs about family.
Mm,
Like we put so much pressure on family.
mhm.
And we as in society, there's just I don't know if you like how being alone is scary. Like they always say like back in the day when you were like the outcast, then you were like starving and you were like fending for yourself because everyone in the community is easier to be part of the community.
Yeah,
And I guess, part of the gay community, we also have a thing where like you can make your own family.
yeah.
Your
Your
family with
chosen
your
family.
blood doesn't mean it has to be your family.
Yeah.
What is the definition of family in the sense of like why are we obligated
Yeah.
to not stick around, but to show up?
Yeah.
And does that make me a bad person or a shitty person or a cynical person or a evil person who doesn't hold family values as strong as maybe the generation before?
Yeah, or what family values might not actually be the definition of family values. I
Mhm.
think, like, that's so funny. So my husband and I and our kids, that's my when I say my family, that's
Mhm.
what I mean now.
Mhm.
I used to
Exactly.
mean, like, my brother, my
Yep.
mom, and those are my family, but
Yes.
typically, if I'm like, "Yeah, my family will be there," it's those
Yes.
3 people,
Yeah.
and there's not a much else.
Nope.
And then, obviously, my mother-in-law is I'm very close with as well. So, like, yes, they get hurdled into these, like, family dynamics, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, it's the 4 of us.
Mhm.
And if I didn't have them, I don't know how I would identify
Mhm.
family. I
Mhm.
honestly do not know.
Mhm.
I think I've always felt closer to friends. A lot of my friendships are familial in the way that I confide in them. There's
Mhm.
intimacy, there's trust, there's like resource sharing, all of that stuff. So I think the word family's changing depending on which community you're in, but they're all the way in Illinois.
Yeah.
Like who's here? And
We have family here. Like I have
yeah.
like 50 people here. Like
Okay.
a lot of people are here.
Okay.
So, and do I see them? No.
No, that's what I was gonna say. When do you ever have like the opportunity to? Like,
Yeah, like when I had my cousin, he was on this
yep,
podcast,
that was
when
a
we
great
went to
episode.
his father's funeral, that was basically like majority of Minnesota people and then a sprinkle of Illinois people came up.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to them like when I used to live at my parents' house, one of my other cousins live across the street. My cousin works at the same company that I work at, so we IM each other all the time.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get my other cousin to do this podcast, but he is one of those texters that texts is like
Once a month.
once a month, so that's very hard for a
I
planner to be
feel
like, "Hello,
Are you there?
are you there?" But yeah, I mean,
So
and
they're
yeah,
there.
they're there,
You're do
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamic. What do you value?
In what
Life
way?
in life. Some people value family, some people value money, some people value sex, some people value drugs, some people
I
value
would love to value sex, but I
spiritualities.
don't get enough of that. No, I'm joking. I don't even that's a great question.
What do you
I
value?
value learning. I value like one thing that I love or one thing that I feel like if I can't have it, I will die is like I love traveling. So
Hmm.
I felt like if I can't travel, then not that I'll die, but I also feel like if I don't learn, like if I'm not learning, if I'm not, I can't stay in one spot for too long. Like
Yeah.
I think before 2 years ago, I wanted to move, and that was because I felt like I've checked all my boxes in that part of
Mm,
chapter of my life.
yeah.
And but this podcast I think is that substitute for moving
Yeah.
because it's another spot for me to learn.
Yeah.
I guess that's I don't know if I value freedom. I always want to continue learning. I always want to continue communicating.
Yeah.
And that's those things I value, like learning and just being around people and being social and like continue just moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds very That sounds very ADHD, and I love that. That's
Probably.
true, that's, like, the root of an ADHD
You
person,
should
just an
see me when I'm trying to
insatiable
cook with no TV. Like, if I don't have music on or the TV
an
on,
extra
oh,
stimuli
it's
to
so hard for me
nourish
to
that.
focus.
100%, I get it. I used to not be able to sit through an entire movie.
Oh,
I didn't see a movie in years because I just was fucking
yeah.
moving, and now I learned that I don't have to physically be moving, but I can move within the realms of, like, this is gonna sound really heady, consciousness,
Yeah.
right? Or, like, spirituality.
Mhm.
You didn't move anywhere from here, but you
Mhm.
did a podcast. That
Mhm.
is moving.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
moved in a different realm of
Yeah.
your life. You
Yes.
come packed up and you left, and now you're here and you
Yeah.
decided to be vulnerable. That's moving.
Mhm.
And I think if you value that, maybe that's not something your, like, blood family can provide you with.
Mhm.
Maybe they bring you back. Maybe you
Mhm.
feel this metaphysical pull that they're bringing.
Mhm.
That's super real. That's
Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
And if that's the feeling you get when you're with them, if they're pulling you back, if this is your life and you're
Yeah.
here and they're back here, neither is better than the other.
Mhm.
But if you feel that pull, your instincts in your body are going to repel you from them.
Mhm.
You're not going to
Mhm.
show up.
Mhm.
Or when you do, you have to be ready to not kind of be pulled back there.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe just taking stock. It's cool to know what you value. To know that you value, different types of community
Mhm.
is important.
What do you value in life? I've never had anyone ask me that question.
What do I value? Oh gosh, I value relationships. I value the ability to receive love from other people when they're showing it to me.
Mhm.
And I value being able to express it to other people.
Mhm.
I think those are the things that I value. I value my family, like my kids, because they are just, I honestly don't have words of why I
Mhm.
value them. There's no like, just they're there. Their
Yes.
existence is
Yes.
valuable to me.
Yeah, that's all you need is
But
them
I,
to being there.
but the biggest thing that I value is my relationship with God
Yeah.
and my relationship with my spiritual self.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to lose some listeners here.
That's
But
fine.
it's very important to me to know that there is a person, a higher power, not a person, but a God, a being, someone that is helping me,
Mhm.
guiding me, someone that I can trust, helps me trust myself.
Mhm.
Um, that journey has taken I didn't know that. I mean, if you would have saw me 15 years ago, I was on a trajectory to be dead in jail. I don't even know where I was going. Like it wasn't anywhere. And having a spiritual anchor, whether it's this religion, that religion,
Mhm.
whatever it is, but having
Mhm.
a guiding force that consistently shows up for you
Mhm.
and reveals treasure, like treasure every time I lean on my higher power, something really
Mhm.
beautiful and
Mhm.
unimaginable
Mhm.
comes of it. And so that's what I value because that is the only thing that's really tethering me to this
Mhm.
physical world because
Mhm.
your girl is floating between realms
Mhm.
half the time.
Mhm.
Like I live in a fantasy fucking world. My husband
Mhm.
will tell you. And so it helps me remain here, but also has a guiding light. So I definitely value that as well.
I wanted like, I'm glad you brought up religion because I've always wanted to have a religious conversation. I think this is the best time than any time. Because I recently, while we're talking about family, and last time sat down with my mom, she was like, "Are you religious?" Because I haven't been in church in God knows how long. And once again, we started this conversation about like me destructing these social constructs.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, this conversation I was kind of ready to have.
Okay.
And so I told her, it's hard to tell them. Basically, I told her, I believe in God,
Mm,
but I don't believe in the capitalist story manufacture part of God or that religion part of God,
mhm.
like what that means. And I was trying to tell her, she's like, well, do you believe that he died for your sins? Like, do you believe that something about like, I can't remember what like the thing you have to believe in order to sign your ticket to heaven. I feel like you have to believe that he died for our sins. You have to believe that he like arisen himself from the dead.
Sure.
There's like one paragraph, like if you believe in this paragraph, you're good, right? And in this one paragraph, I believe it says that he like brought himself out from the dead and like died for our sins.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't believe that. I don't believe someone died, was buried in a cave with a rock in front of it. 3 days later, pulled himself up, and then everyone was like, "Oh my god," like, I don't believe it because I haven't seen it done yet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe a man walked on water or turned water into wine or cured someone's sickness just by touching them or their roe cured their leper. I don't believe in that, but
And the magic of it
in
all.
the magic of it all.
Yeah.
But I believe in that there was a person, like maybe the first person to ever do it that was like, this isn't right. Like what we're living, how we're living isn't right. Like there's too much sick people here. And the fact that he taught a man how to fish for days instead of like fishing for weeks or whatever the story is, I believe in that. I believe that someone was like, oh, you're depending on our government to feed you. Let me teach you how you can feed yourself. You know what I mean? Oh, you forgot about love, or there's so much sickness in here. There's so much pain in here. I believe that someone said that there needs to be more love in this world. We need to fight for each other. We need to believe in each other. We need to help each other. We need to teach each other. We need to rely on each other with love and passion and grace. I believe in that. And then I believe the government got a wind of it. It was like, oh, we got to get this man out of it. I believe in that. And
Yeah.
so we should never, ever forget about how he was the first person, or she or they was the first person that was like, I'm going to stand up for you. I also believe that, yeah, I believe that we have a higher power. I believe there is an entity out there. And I think that could be one and the same, like when you said like, I didn't have my life, I didn't know where it was going to be. Sometimes another thing too, like my mom said this story. She said that my sister and I have two different dads. So my mom was married first, had my sister, got a divorce. So my mom was like, I was looking for a new man in my life, and I wrote down all the qualities that I needed in a husband, and I prayed on it and I put it in my Bible. And she said years went by, and I met your dad, and she was like, I almost didn't say yes to him because he had a beard and an earring. And she was like, she's like, I didn't grow up with guys that had beards. None of my brothers had beards. So I thought beards were gross. And she was like, clearly, she was like, God doesn't give you what you want. He gives you what you need and stuff like that. And I was like, well, if God is like this perfect person, then he would have given you a man with no beard and no earring. But he didn't. And I think what I want my mom, or what I believe in, is she was like, I don't think if without God, I wouldn't have met your dad. And I was like, no, I think you still would have met him because you manifested that you needed a man with these needs.
Mm.
You needed a man with needs. You didn't check the beard because I needed a man that was accountable. I needed a man that was a good father. I needed a man like blah, 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 blah. Because if God was perfect, he would have given you your perfect man, but he didn't. He
But
gave you what you needed.
that's assuming that she knew what was perfect for her, right? That's
I guess.
assuming to. So that's where people make so you're perceiving a God that's been commercialized over hundreds and thousands of
Yes.
years.
Yes.
And I think once you break free of that
Yes.
perception,
Mhm.
you can start identifying, oh wow, why am I trying to identify what this force is?
Mhm.
Because it goes beyond our
Mhm.
understanding. There's
Mhm.
no human social construct
Mhm.
that can put to words what God is. God
Yes.
is in the air we're breathing. He's in us. He's everybody. He's
Yes.
that, this, whatever, she,
Yes.
they, all of it.
Yes.
And so to stop perceiving like when I hear that, I picture like a bearded man up there being like
Yes.
bippity
Yes.
boppity boo.
Yes.
And like, really, no, God was in you, Kate.
Yes.
God was
Yes.
in you.
Mhm.
And that little sperm floating
Mhm.
around
Mhm.
your dad's
Mhm.
deal.
Mhm.
Sorry to put that image out there, but like that was God.
Yes.
So God was that force. So God
Mhm.
is the force of everything. And
Mhm.
so, but to stop like writing down and like the word manifest and
Mhm.
like we're not doing any of that.
Mhm.
We're in a world that is full of dark shit. I
Mhm.
see it. I'm a social worker. I I've seen it for the last 7 years
Mhm.
of the most horrible dark shit I could never say or share. And because I see that darkness, I'm able to see light.
Mhm.
And I was not able to
Mhm.
see that before,
Mhm.
this darkness. And that's when I see people who've been in the worst situations of their, like, there's things I can't even imagine that happen to people. And they're the ones who've introduced me to God.
Mhm.
They're the ones that are sleeping in stairwells downtown. They're the ones that haven't had shower, food, or in weeks that I give maybe my last cigarette to,
Mhm.
and then we sit and have a conversation, and they're the ones who reveal God
Mhm.
to me. And that's where I see him. I don't see him up here trying to make my privileged
Mhm.
life better.
Mhm.
The I see him in the people who've seen darkness. I've seen
Mhm.
him in the people, and I don't know how that's and for even me, I was in church this morning thinking, "Man, I can't conceptualize half this shit. What?" I'm like, I don't know how any of us I'm okay with being in the unknowing of, like, you're here.
Yes.
I don't know who you are, where you're
Mhm.
doing it from,
Mhm.
or where I'm going. I can use the word to guide me,
Mhm.
and at the same time, still, men wrote those words down.
Mhm.
And so I have to lean on my knowledge of God and
Mhm.
my relationship, and
In your
that's
faith.
where I do in my
Mhm.
faith,
Mhm.
in my
Mhm.
blind faith,
Mhm.
and let that go.
Mhm.
And so knowing that that's where we all come from, and that's like kind of so the manifesting and the this happened and this to me it's so much past that.
Mhm.
And so um I see where you're coming from, and your feelings are super valid
Mhm.
because my brother told me that too. He's like, I don't believe in organized religion, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's fine.
Mhm.
I don't even know what that means,
Mhm.
organized religion, but this is what I believe. I can't even conceptualize or put
Yes.
words to
Yeah.
because it's a spiritual
Yes.
conversation.
Yes. And that's what I want. That's what I yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain
Sure.
that, but, once again, they come from that generation where it's just like the whole
Very
performance,
literal.
very literal. Yeah. Yes.
Performative because it's fear-based. A
Yes.
lot of it's fear-based, but fear is not a emotion that comes
Yes.
from God.
Mhm. Mhm.
Fear is of, like, darker forces.
Mhm.
An emotion that comes from God is like, have you ever just, like, smoked and just laid down and been like, "I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay." That's the emotion that comes from God. It's like a trust, but you
Yes.
don't know where it's coming from.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
something it's not
Yeah.
fear-based. It's not, "You're evil, you're different." It's giving and receiving love to other
Yes.
people, and I so strongly believe
Yes.
that, and I try to enter each space I go into with that idea, otherwise I fuck it up.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I'm a shit person a lot of the time. I wanna, like, be the cutest and be the smartest, and my ego runs my life, but if I can just check in with myself and lean on a higher power to navigate my conversations and my relationships, I'm much better off than I've
Mhm.
ever been.
Mhm.
And I don't know,
Mhm.
I can get off that.
Yes, no. But I'm glad you said that because to me, it's like when you're like saying that you sit back and relax and be like, I'm okay. Like I had those moments when I was in my old apartment. And then I remember getting into this apartment and it hit me one day when I was on my balcony or when I was on a walk. I remember I was 8 years old or something along those lines. And my mom was going to the Guthrie Theater and we took this parkway. And I was just like, in this parkway, this area where I lived to an 8-year-old was like, it was like a neighborhood where you felt established. And it
Mm,
didn't have to be in the suburbs. Like it was in the city. It made me feel established. It made me feel like I got somewhere. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to live in these places.
mm,
And then fast forward 20 years later, without even knowing it, I signed a 2-year lease in the neighborhood that I thought I needed to be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a great project manager that works
right.
at a good job. But it was that moment on the balcony or it was a moment on the walk where I was like, "Oh shit."
You're
Like
like,
when
"I
I was
knew
8
this."
years old, I wanted to live here and now I'm here. And it's not like I don't want to say I was like, thank God, because I don't want to I just don't want to put it all on him. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Cuz I do remember making those goals like success means this to me or
Yeah.
like searching like jobs that not pay high, but like knowing what I'm getting myself into and
Yep.
being like, how do I find the balance of getting paid well, but doing something that I actually like? And then 20 years later, and just like my mom, how she wrote down those things and she put it in her Bible. And then time later, she meet, my dad. Time later, I get into the spot. Like that to me is a moment of God,
Mhm.
but it's also a moment of, no, it's also me putting in that work and just having faith that I'll get there, whether I remember having faith or not. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, faith in action.
Faith in action.
And I think it's funny that when you're younger, when you're a child, that's like the the Bible talks a lot about that too. It's like Jesus said that the kingdom of God, so like whatever that may be.
Yeah.
What it sounds great, don't know what it is.
Yes.
It could be heaven, it could be what, you know, the kingdom of God, all
Yes.
that's light rests in the hearts of children.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, let them come to me. I so believe that like your child, your inner child knew on some spiritual level. Now you know, I probably sound a little bit cuckoo, but I truly believe that children have so much of the answers that we're looking
I
for in
do
this
too.
dark and fallen world. And I think that, yeah, your inner child was like, Cayman, you have the drive. You
Mm-hmm.
believe in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's huge. So
Mm-hmm.
if you thought about God in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
then you can just have gratitude for
Yes.
like yourself, but have
Yes.
gratitude for yourself because you have a hell of a drive
Yes.
and you're so ambitious. So, but those are all things that, you know, are fruits of the spirit.
Yes.
And so I don't know. I think,
I think it's a balance. To me, it has to
yeah,
be a balance because I think with my parents, I feel like with that story with my mom finding my dad, I feel like she put
yeah,
all the responsibility on God and all the gratitude to God, and I just to me it's just like yeah, but don't forget about you. Like you, the one who wrote that down, and whether you woke up every day saying I want a man that da 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 da. You put it in your heart, you put it in your
yeah,
soul, and you let that guide you, and that's still you.
yeah,
It's you and God. It's like a blend of both. But I just feel like tr old our generation or our parents' generation just kinda, like, gives all the things to him and not really understand that, like, you put work in that too. Like, don't forget about yourself. Don't forget about how you set out for your goals and you went out. Because also when I go when I was in church, they always said faith without action is pointless. Praying without action is pointless.
yeah. Even
So
the
it has
devil
to
can
be
read the Bible and pray, but
yes, people who
believing
put in
it,
the work and putting in faith in themselves,
yeah.
that's where you get it. So
I don't know. Yeah, I think giving gratitude to God is a good thing.
mhm.
I also don't want to like blame or give credit if it's my idea. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing is if it's like, "Oh, I prayed about that. I really wanted that car
Yeah.
and then I got that car. That's
Yeah.
it." No, it's more of like a divine intervention.
Yes.
Like I broke my arm. I ended up in the hospital. The hospital found out I had a tumor in my armpit,
Yes.
and that's divine
Yeah.
intervention, right? Like the things that I have no business
Mhm.
doing is divine
Mhm.
intervention. We have willpower. I think humans are so powerful.
Mhm.
But I think you're also tapped into your spiritual awareness. You
Mhm.
have to be, especially
Mhm.
after all of the psychedelic, like you have to
Mhm.
have some
Mhm.
realm experience. And so I don't know. I think we have power within ourselves too.
Yeah.
And so my ego is like, why do I need the credit so bad? Like,
Yeah.
why do I need the credit to trust myself? Well, I already do. So it's kind of like, I think it helps people tell themselves a digestible story about God when they're like, well, I got what I prayed for.
Yeah.
But when you don't get what you prayed for, wow,
Yeah.
then who is God to you
Yeah.
then? Like, that must feel really crappy,
Yeah.
you know? So, you know, I try to just, and I don't ever want to push anything on anybody else because what my experience is something I can't even explain to my husband.
Yeah.
Like, we believe, and that's, my church always says we're a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. So no one shows up here thinking we're better than anybody. We're
Yes.
all super flawed. We're just all trying to tap into something
Yes.
because we're suffering.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I one other thing I wanna talk to you is about you said that kids are the future, and I agree. I look at your kids and I even look at, like, how I was raised too. Like, I remember being in kindergarten and, like, I had a crush on a guy named Corbin Blue. Like, I knew even in kindergarten, like, he was biracial and had a biracial afro,
Yeah.
and he was too cool for school. This is, like, in kindergarten, and I just remember him being too cool for school, and then I saw him years later, and he was still too cool for wherever
Wait,
we
is this
saw.
a man named Corbin Blue or Corbin Blue from
The
High School
guy
Musical?
the guy that I had a crush on in kindergarten is named Casey, but to give people a visual of what he looks like,
Oh, got it.
is he looks like
I was
Corbin
like, you know
Blue.
Corbin
Oh, no,
Blue?
no, no. It's just like the biracial kid with the giant afro, that
Yeah.
was literally Casey.
Yes.
But then, we were also talking about, like, you said, like, raising your kids for, like, this
Mhm.
new generation.
Yeah.
And when I look at, like, your daughter and then I look at, like, women as a whole, it seems like to me, and I also see it in media, it seems like either we're making media to be this way or women has always been like this. They're more tougher than we give them credit. Like, when I look at Charlotte, like, no shade, no tea, she's more tougher than her sorry, Crystal, she listens to this. But but then when I look at Silas he's more emotional, like, he's more expressive with his emotion, he's more sensitive in a way, but then when you look at men as a whole, they're more sensitive. Like, I
Mhm.
just think men are always more sensitive, but then when I look
Interesting.
at women, they're more tougher, they have to be more tougher, they're facing more oppression than man, they're always have to fit in these boxes, so it's just always interesting when I feel like we try to raise women to be like these polite, dainty, cross your legs and don't burp and don't do this and be the damsel in
Mm.
distress. And then we raise these men to come in and be like these protectors and providers. But then when they're young, it's kind of the opposite. It's like when I see young boys, they're so sensitive and emotionally expressive. But then when I see girls, they're more like, I'm about to jump on you and like, let's
Yeah.
wrestle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what happened? Like, why did we switch it? Or why
The
can't we just let
paradigm shifted.
kids just be kids?
That's what I was gonna say. I think they're all very similar in the way they all have a lot of emotions. They're
Hmm.
all really big emotions, and they all have these vulnerabilities that get kind of kicked out of them.
Hmm.
So, like, when you see little boys like Silas who are really sensitive, I'm sure Charlotte's just as sensitive.
Hmm.
But like girls, especially being one with an older brother, immediately picked up on the cue that,
Hmm.
oh, it might even be a biological thing because women have just been like abused
Yeah.
over history,
Yeah.
that I need to get I can't let them see that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, I remember from a young age learning how to fight and learning how to be rambunctious because
Hmm.
I knew that I was a target. Like, internally, my body
Hmm.
knew. And so maybe there's like a little bit of, she has sort of a front, and maybe he is just who he is and he's
Hmm.
not super sensitive. Maybe he's just a human,
Hmm.
who's
Hmm.
just like a letting it all fly.
Yes. Yeah.
I see that too. And I see my son, but go to public school and get a lot of that shit kicked out of him
Yes.
to where he can't cry and he's
Yes.
this, and now we're working on that. I
Yes.
have a video, we met someone on a little boat we were on the other day, and the first thing they do when they meet each other is they arm wrestle. The first thing they do. And that's not him. Like, I know him. I go to bed with him every night. We have conversations about like God and love and emotions, and we have a feelings journal.
Yes.
And it's like
Yes.
all of a sudden you're in public and you have this, you're putting on these huge defenses.
Yes.
And so I don't really know what I'm doing because I feel like I have no ability to control the outcome.
Yes.
He's at school, he learns what he does. I just have to know he can like check in with me
Yes.
and I can call him on some shit
Mhm.
and he can call me on some shit, which he does. Lucy, on the other hand, like she already knows it's a biological thing, I think, for her. She already
Mhm.
knows she has to be like
Mhm.
not fucked with. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like young children either feel like they really need to be protected or okay with being vulnerable. I don't
Mhm.
know. I think that starts really young.
Mhm.
Um, and the only thing I can do is not give in to see them through my traumatized lens
Mhm.
and being like, oh, you can't do this because you could be, vulnerable to a predator, and
Mhm.
just like take that off objectively, not see them through my own trauma,
Mhm.
which is really hard because I have a lot of that, especially as a young girl. So I think it goes to say, like, have your values, have a foundation of, we value communication in
Mhm.
this family. I don't value anything above the fact that you can tell me things, because my mom always, the first time I had sex, I lost my virginity. I got in the car with her, said it right away. She wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, you." She just was like, "All right, girl, let's talk about it." Because and that was the most valuable thing she could have done. And so I learned from that and said, okay, we need to be. So when Kobe now makes a mistake or Lucy makes a mistake, I'm not here to like shame them. They're going to make so many mistakes. They don't
Mhm.
need me calling their ass out.
Mhm.
They're going to have the world doing that. But we do need to talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, where to, like, if that communication is open, I don't know how we got this, but I think gender stereotypes also play into that too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
communication is key because the more you do that, the more they find who they are,
Yeah.
and they can kind of be that core person in their lives.
I was laughing because when you said you told your mom that you had sex and she was open, I remember I used to when I was a kid, I grew up on Kool-Aid and sugary drinks, like
Yeah.
barely any water. So when I would go pee, it would hurt so bad because I was so dehydrated and it was just like nothing coming out. So like we had to
Oh
like
my
my mom
god.
used to call the hospital and be like, what's going on with my kid? And like, oh, this is totally normal. Just put him in the bath and let him pee in the bath and it will be fine. And it worked. If I put, anytime So then I learned like, oh, they learn like, oh, we have to give him water because, you know, his body's not whatever. The very first time it was like, I don't know what it's like to have gonorrhea in the dick, but like I imagine it just burned so
Oh
bad.
no.
And so I was grabbing myself and I was like, "Mom, my dick hurts." And she was like, "What?" I'm like, "My dick hurts. Oh my God, what's going?" And she's like, "We do not say that word in the house.
Oh
Like, you
wow.
cannot say dick. You have to say." I'm sitting here like holding my stuff, like, ah,
You're like, girl, my dick hurts.
yes, in the bathroom, like the bathroom door shut. I'm just sitting here like, "Mom, help, help." And she's screaming out, "We do not say the word dick in this house. We say penis." And I was like, "Mom, my penis hurts." She's like, "Okay, let me help." I'm like, "Girl,
You gotta say penis or I
you
can't help you.
gotta-"
Say it.
So I
That's
didn't,
so funny.
yeah, I didn't have that. But yeah, I guess, you know,
I didn't have that.
I definitely did it. Yeah, I don't know. So how do you, okay, I like how you said, like, yes, it's interesting that you said that maybe women have like this biological need to automatically just be on defense mode because, you know, like with Charlotte, like I remember when I used to pick her up, she's like, "Set me down. Like,
Mhm.
do not pick me up."
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when kids are going up the stairs and you're behind, I'm like, "Oh, let me just," she'd be like, "Julie, not
Yeah.
like put me down." And then she would go back down to the step that you picked her up on and then go back up the
Proving
stairs.
you. That is yes, that is Lucy to a T.
Yes.
A chip on her shoulder,
Mhm.
she will prove to you.
Mhm.
Everything is her proving to you that she's strong for it, is what she
Yes.
says. "Mom, I'm strong for it."
Yes.
And it's so hard for me to not push that and push it and be like, "You're strong for it. Do it.
Mhm.
You're strong for
Mhm.
it." Because you don't always have to be strong.
Mhm.
And in fact, there's a lot of strength in being weak or
Mhm.
vulnerable. And so, like,
Mhm.
yes. And so it's hard for me to not be like, yes, be strong, be strong. It's a push and pull. She probably thinks I'm like
Mhm.
Jekyll and Hyde over here.
Mhm.
Like,
Yes. She's like, "Girl."
but she's like, stop thinking about it. Just
Yes.
let me do. And that's exactly what it is. I need
Yeah.
to let her do it because she knows better than I do. Obviously, safety concerns, I have a very strict boundary, but outside, like hitting, she's been hitting a lot lately
Mhm.
because she's strong for it.
Mhm.
And she's been hitting me. She's been like pinching, and
Mhm.
that's like I always say, I never like want to punish a kid by isolating
Yeah.
them because that's fucked up,
Yeah.
but I never want to let her know that like you can't hit me. Like if I feel unsafe in a relationship, I need to leave.
Yeah.
Just like if you were in an abusive relationship with a partner, you need to get the fuck out of
Yeah.
there. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
So if you pinch me or hit me and slap me, I'm going to explain to you, wow, I'm feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
You're like really challenging my safety. I'm getting out of this
Yeah.
room. And then I leave. Also, that prevents me from being like, don't fucking hit
Yeah.
me, and
Yes.
like all that
Yes.
crazy shit.
Yes.
So, like, I need, but explaining to her, like, this is my boundary. And that's
Yes.
the only boundary I have with them is physical safety. We don't
Do
touch.
you
Yeah.
think your mom ever did that to you? Because what I hear
Mm,
is like it's teaching women to obviously like with my friend Hannah who was in an emotional abusive relationship, it's like,
yeah.
did her mom teach her that? I don't remember my mom ever telling me like if someone hits you, get the hell out of here. But I'm a guy. So I
Right.
don't know if we get that same, you know,
Nurturing.
nurture, but once again it go back to like, so it's like, are you teaching your daughter to break these stereotypes of a woman being a damsel in distress in this relationship that she can't get out of? Because, you know, I'm sure you don't want her to fall in love with a guy that's going, or a woman that's going to take advantage of them.
Mhm.
So you're probably setting these roots where she can learn, like, oh, you are causing me physical harm and I have every right to get out of this.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, it's easier said than done, you know,
Yeah.
but at least you can have that groundwork.
Foundational seed
Yes.
planted. And I don't
Yes.
think that she could still get in an abusive relationship,
Yes.
God forbid, in the future. That's how little control I
Mhm,
have.
mhm,
And my therapist told me that. She's like, "Abby, I'm gonna give you some freedom.
mhm.
You have no control over the outcome. The only thing you can do is be the safety rail.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
can set those safety parameters, everything else that happens, you have no control over it.
Yeah.
Sleep better at night.
Yeah.
Don't do that." Helps me a lot. So if I can lay the foundation of safety, which for me is a body concern.
Yeah.
No one's allowed to touch you there.
Now,
No
are
one's
you
allowed to hurt
teaching
you.
her this because of your past experience as a woman and because of women's past experiences, and, like, now we need to teach our daughters? Because I say that because Crystal's teaching her son to keep his hands to himself.
Yeah.
And boys are very
Consent.
physical
Yeah.
and consent.
Yep.
Like, Silas will love to slap people's butts, and she'll be
He
like,
always slaps my butt.
exactly. And see, that's another thing, like boys slapping their mom's butts because their dads do it. And when you look at men, men slap butts in sports, they slap butts with their friends, they slap butts with their love partners. So I don't know if this is a guy thing. I like my butt to be slapped by the
I
guy that I'm
don't
dating,
right. I'm not mad at Kobe for slapping my butt.
but you
I
want to
just
teach him
don't yeah,
consent.
I don't want him to, like, slap his teacher's butt.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't, like, get
Exactly.
anything out of it, but I'm also not mad at him. I'm
Yes.
not like, "Fuck you,
Yes.
slap my butt." Like, he's just like, he doesn't even think. And I think if you make a big deal out of something,
Mhm.
oh my gosh,
Mhm.
then it's a thing. Then
Mhm.
you're, like, making it kind of,
A thingy.
taboo
Yes.
and
Yes.
sexy
Yes.
or like
Like all those
mystery.
conservatives who are like, gay people are sexualizing us. It's like a man wearing high heels is not sexualizing
Right, like,
children.
why are we
You're
making a
yes.
you are doing it, it's
Yes.
reflecting your inner narrative,
Yes.
sir. 100% agree. So, yes, I think, making those big deals out of the butt slaps, but consent. You can root anything.
Mhm.
Anything can be rooted in consent. So, like, wow, I really didn't want to be touched. Did
Mhm.
you ask me about that?
Mhm.
I'm not going to win every time. I'd be saying
Mhm.
that all day long.
Mhm.
My face would be blue from telling him, hey, did you ask me about that? You have to pick and choose. Sometimes
Yes.
kids aren't going to want to hear it. I just try to not overanalyze their
Yeah.
behavior because I tend to do that. And because I'm a social worker and right now I'm doing therapy with kiddos, I can see 15 years down the road. I
Yes.
try not to do that.
Yeah.
I try to just say, you're where you're at here. And if you think you need to be like super aggro
Yeah.
around your dudes, then you're doing what you need to do. I'm not going to try to overcorrect you,
Mhm.
but I also don't want you to be a fucking asshole.
Mhm. Mhm.
So where do we go?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I when I look at, you teaching your son consent and Crystal teaching her son consent, and then looking at just like the state of man today about
Mhm.
how men just really, I guess, don't have consent, and there's a huge rape culture. And I mean, like my dad never taught me to keep my hands to myself, but I also never had the urge, and it could just because I'm gay. But I mean, I could also rape as a gay person, but I've never really had the urge to take advantage of a woman, but that's probably because,
It's probably because I'm gay.
And so maybe my dad really got the short, like the good end of the stick, be like, oh, I have a gay son. I don't have to teach him. But, like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just, it's interesting raising kids, especially because, you had your life, you're still living your life. You
Yeah.
see the men that are men. It's
Mhm.
like, well, how can I raise the next generation to be more, you know, consentful thinking? And raise my daughter to be more vocal in what she wants and being okay to stand in what she wants and not feeling like she has to like duck down and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So,
I think it is in them to do a lot of that. I take a lot of that responsibility off because I can't be responsible for
isn't
a
that
whole
scary though?
generation. No, because they know. It's all about the behavior you model. If they're seeing if I'm saying one thing, but then I go home and I don't live that way,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to see right through that bullshit
Mm-hmm.
and they don't care what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Just like religion. If your parents are abusing you at home, but they always say, well, God, and they use religion. That's how so many people get pushed away from it. It's
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, you're a hypocrite, dude. Like, just try to model the best you can. And that's all you can do because they're going to do that. They're not going to do. My mom used to always do as I say and not as
Not
I
as I do.
do. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
why would I believe that? And then if you fuck up, because I always
Mm-hmm.
do, circle back and have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mom lost her shit back there.
Mm-hmm.
Grown-ups are really flawed and
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on it every day. And if you, have questions, you can ask me.
Do you feel like that makes you a weaker mom?
I don't know.
Because I sometimes I wish, I don't know, I always got whoopings as a child. And I
Mhm.
remember asking my dad, like, can we stop doing whoopings? Like, I'd rather just take punishments. And he
Yeah,
was like, I will whoop you and then punish
I
you.
got spanked.
Yes.
Yeah, I got spanked.
Yes.
I definitely experienced that corporal punishment. Did it stop me from doing anything bad?
Not
No,
me.
but it encouraged me to hide it.
Yeah.
So, kids are gonna do fucked up shit
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
I had great parents who would really fuck me up if they knew some of the shit I was doing,
Yes.
but because I got so good at hiding it,
Yeah.
I never had to own up to my shit until I was
Exactly.
in my 20s.
Yes.
Hopefully, my kid can fuck up and
Yes.
immediately be like, "I fucked up,"
Yes. Yeah.
because that's what's happening at home, and so maybe I'm weaker because I'm not, like, physically hurting them when they
Yeah.
fuck up, but I'm stronger in the sense, well, we can handle it and we can get through it as long as you're telling me.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much. Literally, after one time, Kobe took a $5 bill from his dad's wallet. He told me immediately. He was like, Mom, I did something. And I wasn't like, oh my God. I was just like, well, what do you think the penalty for that would be if you were an adult?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'd go to jail. Yeah, you can't steal money.
Yeah.
You'd lose a job. You'd lose a friend. What are the
Yes.
results of this?
Yeah.
And that was lesson learned.
Yeah.
I didn't need to beat him.
Yes.
That wouldn't be that. He would just be like, well, next time I'm not telling that bitch.
Yes.
You know. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry for
Well, I asked
cursing.
because I asked if you because our parents never did that.
Yeah.
And so it's our parents, like you said, do what I say, not what I do, and they
Mhm.
always wanted to be stoic and always want to be the right ones and be like this. Well, at least for my parents, I always want to be like the pillars of parentness. Like
Mhm.
we are the
Perfect.
parents, you are the child, we are authoritarians. Our house, our rules. If you don't like, you get out.
Yeah.
So it's just like I would have loved if we had more of a like. Clearly, I would have loved if we talked about it a little bit more
Yeah.
before going towards the belt. Especially if I'm like, hey, Dad, can we stop with the whoopings? Like, I'd rather just punish me.
If
I
my
promise
kids
you.
said that to me after I beat their ass, I'd be like, damn, G, okay. We're done here. That's my bad. I would be so beside my ego.
Yes.
So here's the thing. Don't act perfect as a parent because then your kid is going to be even the more traumatized when they realize how imperfect you are. Be open. Then they won't feel the pressure to be perfect. And they'll just, obviously, we don't want them to be like wilding out. You got to
Yes.
set up those boundaries, but you
Yes.
don't need to pretend you're perfect. You don't need to be anything because
Yeah.
we're fucking flawed.
Yeah.
I am a flawed parent. I had a kid when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And me and him both looked at each other like, well, but maybe I'm not. Maybe some people say that she's a bad parent, but I don't want to I trust them. I
Yeah.
trust them a lot. So I don't know.
That's
I
good.
think I liked what Crystal had to say about what she was concerned about technology. I have all those concerns. You can put up those guardrails. You can take away the tablets, the iPads, all of it. They don't miss them that much once they're gone for good, but they do cause a lot of harm. I've worked with patients who went to the emergency department after their child was self-harming because the iPad was taken away.
Yeah.
If that's not some sort of addiction, I
Yeah.
don't know what
Yeah.
is. They were
Yeah.
physically in pain
Yeah.
for not having this screen in front
Yeah.
of their face. What are we numbing and what? So I'm not judgmental because
Yeah.
I know I've definitely thrown YouTube at my kid when I'm trying to have a work meeting, especially during COVID, but there are things we just need to be aware of and put those guardrails up so that kids can know, hey, if you watch a lot of that, your brain's going to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. My
And-
brain's changing because I get bored on TikTok.
Sure.
That's another reason why I push myself on this podcast because when I sit on TikTok, I literally get a headache. I'm like, I'm not
Yes.
what's on
Can't
this?
even
Nothing.
stop. You're
You
one
can't.
more video.
And it's not like anything's good. There's fun things on there, but it's not it's how many times can I watch TikToks about babies or someone falling off of something or something political and people yelling at each other? It's
Yeah.
enough is enough. And then when I go on YouTube, it's how many podcasts can I watch and how many how much social media can I consume without it making me feel like I have a headache?
There's a balance that can be had too.
Yeah.
That's in my house right now. When Kobe's done summer camp, I'm like, you can play 10 minutes of Switch. I don't make it this super thing. If you're good, you get
Yes.
to play Switch because then it's a reward or
Yeah.
a prize. When really it's just a tool.
Yeah.
Go play 10 minutes of Switch. Then meet me outside. We're gonna go play basketball.
Yeah.
But getting him to know that they're both the same amount of value
Yeah.
instead of soothing him with it. Here, take this. You're crying.
Yeah.
So I think, and just letting him know, yeah, you can play for an extra 10 minutes, but tell me how you physically feel after
Yeah.
that. And we literally had the conversation the other day. One day he was with his dad all day. No shade on his dad. He just has a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
So he's like, dude, you got to go do your own thing. I have meetings all day. At the end of the day, he was like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do anything. And the next day I was like, I have time off. And I set up a schedule. He did math. He did reading. He was outside. He played a Switch. He watched a movie. We switched it up, though. We switched it up. And I was like, how is your body physically feeling? And then we talked about it. That's all we had to do is for him to kind of see the difference. Oh, when I lay in bed and watch TV all day, I feel like shit. I feel a little down. I have no energy. Just letting him reflect on his body, because your body will tell you what you
Yeah.
need. Our headaches from scrolling, it's our head, our body screaming, "Get the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get the
Yes.
fuck out of
Yeah.
here."
Yeah. Yeah. Last night I put headphones on and I just paced my apartment listening to music. And at first it was like so weird. It's weird to me when I'm like, I just wish someone had a camera because
I know,
most
I
of the
was thinking
time they'll just see me talking to myself, which is also so crazy
same.
too,
No.
because I hate when you realize that you're talking about yourself.
And you're like, "Did anyone hear me?"
That or is like sometimes I'm like I'll be on my balcony and I don't talk to myself on the balcony, but I'm talking to my head, and so I'm moving and I'm like, is someone seeing me move? But good thing I have headphones on because it could look like that I'm on the phone. And then I come in here and then I literally verbally talk to myself or pace around the house. And then after like 15 minutes of a deep conversation, I'm like, I literally just talked to myself for the past and answering all my questions. But yeah.
I do the same thing, and one time Mike walked in while I was doing it, I was so
Yeah.
embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I probably do it so much, he acted like
Mhm.
nothing happened.
My mom did it all the time.
Really?
Mhm. My mom will always talk to herself, and she would be like, she will always say, "As long as you're not responding to yourself, you're okay." And I remember her saying that, and I said to myself, "I respond to
I
myself.
respond to
I
myself.
respond
I
to
have a
myself."
really active narrative in
Oh,
my
yeah. I have
body
a
at all
full
times.
Oprah podcast where I am Oprah, and then I'm also the guest at the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
Explaining my job,
Yes,
what I
yeah,
do.
yes. They say it's like a everything's a trauma response, you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
it's just a trauma response. Yeah.
Well, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that you do that. That
I
makes
do it
me
all the
feel good.
time.
I do that so much. Like, I'm important and I have political hot takes
Oh,
and like,
yes. Yes. Yeah, and then that's how sometimes I start these conversations. It's like, oh, I start listening to like, what am I actually saying? Like, what am I talking about? And then I start paying attention to how frequently those conversations, or at least a topic, will come up in different
yeah,
variations. And that's kind of really where I'm like, all right, well, clearly I want to say something.
yeah,
So let me form it into a conversation and then let me find a guest that can fit it. And then let's
sure.
just put it out there and see what happens.
No, I would love to be a fly on your wall when you're having those conversations with yourself.
Yes. Nothing. You'll see me literally pacing back and forth. I'll like talk to myself. I'll sit on the toilet as if I have to pee, and then I'll just sit there for like 20 minutes and get back up.
Just disassociating.
Yeah, all the time, all the time.
You're
In the car, yeah, the cars, yeah, but yeah. Well, thank you for joining my
Thank
podcast
you for
again.
having
Of
me. Oh my gosh. Very
course.
beautiful. Very beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.